Police in several states are ramping up their search for the suspect believed to have murdered at least 18 people in Maine Wednesday night. Investigators searched the last known home of 40-year-old Robert Card yesterday. Neighbors saw flashing lights and heard yelling and loud bangs, but Card was not there. Police have announced the U.S. Army reservist is facing at least 8 counts of murder. That number will rise as more of the victims are identified. Officials say Card is considered armed and dangerous. The mass shooting happened at a bowling alley and bar in Lewiston. The small community is reeling from the attack. Police say they have received more than 500 tips and leads, but also say they are concerned about the investigation as time passes.
Every minute that this goes on, we're more and more concerned, because what's the next thing that's going to happen? And we understand that. And that's why we're working 24/7 to bring this individual to justice and to try to bring some closure and overall safety to our communities. So yes, we feel that just as much as the community member does or any of us. This is a privilege. This is an honor we have to do something about these tragedies when they occur.
Our own Elaine joins us from Lewiston, Maine. Elaine, bring us up to speed. What is the latest on the search for the suspect?
So, Meg, today we learned from the Public Safety Commissioner that search that has been going on by land, by air, by sea, is now incorporating the use of divers. The Public Safety Commissioner said today that they are going to be using divers in an area river to basically try to scour those rivers for any kind of evidence that might be apparent there. They'll be using sonar, remote operating vehicles to try to get a look, essentially, at what might be in that river. He went into detail about how the local power company, which operates a couple of dams in the area, is helping them essentially change the water levels to get a better look so that they can operate as they continue that search. But as we have been talking about, since this shooting happened, the amount of terrain is vast here, and there are many places where an individual could hide. We heard the Public Safety Commissioner describe some of that in that briefing today. There are areas that are heavily wooded, and so that work continues. Also continuing, there was some 70 witness statements, at least initially, that the Public Safety Commissioner said came in as investigators were beginning their work, and so that is taking quite a bit of time to sort through as well. We should tell you, Meg, we heard just a short time ago from local law enforcement that there will be another update at 3 p.m. Eastern, so we are standing by for that as well.
Okay, as you mentioned, such a vast area, remote, heavily wooded. You're right now in front of the Central Maine Medical Center. As this search continues, we're hearing more about the victims that are being treated there. What can you tell us?
So we also have some updates for you on that front. My producer, Louisa, just talked to or communicated with the public information officer here at the hospital. We know that right now there are 3 people in stable condition. There are 3 people in the intensive care unit behind me here at the hospital. 1 person was discharged yesterday, 1 person released today. So that is an update from numbers that we had. It had been reported there were some 8 people that were still in the hospital, but now, as of this count, again, 1 released today, 1 discharged yesterday, 3 now in stable condition, 3 in intensive care.
That's some good news that 2 people have been released. As you mentioned, 6 people still there. We're also learning more about the victims in the shooting. Elaine, you spent some time with some of their family members, including a woman who lost her husband. I want to listen to part of your interview and then bring you in.
He's helped me raise my children since they were very, very little. His daughter's only 13 and without a dad because of all this, because of one man's choices. My daughter has to grow up without a father.
Just heartbreaking listening to her. What else did she share with you about her family?
Yeah, so that is Christy Strout. Her husband was Arthur Strout. He was 42 years old, and she said he was a wonderful father to their 3 children. He was a towering figure, literally 6'5", and so really would tower over anyone in the room, but had such a personality that when he was there in a room with folks, no matter how heavy the mood, he brought levity, he brought joy. That was his personality. Both she and you saw also sitting next to her, her father-in-law, that's Arthur's father, told me he was that kind of person. Now she says she doesn't know how she's going to move forward without him.
Really hard to listen to, but we are thinking of the Strouts and all of the other victims' family members as the search continues. Elaine, Quijano for us in Maine, thank you. Joining us now is Charles Marino. He is a former Homeland Security Department advisor specializing in law enforcement and a former Secret Service special agent. Charles Card has been on the run since Wednesday night. Talk to us a little bit about what this investigation looks like at this point in time.
He's clearly stated earlier during the press conference that time is not a friend to the investigative process. And they're exactly right. As time goes on, it becomes harder. The tips coming in become more robust. And overall, it becomes more like finding a needle in a haystack, even more so than it already is. What I can tell you is there are a lot of assumptions out there, and one being, is the suspect still not alive? And that, unfortunately, due to the dangerousness, the mental health instability of this individual is just not a luxury that they can run with. So you're going to see authorities keep on a full court press as if the suspect is still out there, is still alive, is still very dangerous, and remains so. And the federal, state, and local authorities will continue to push ahead with their ground and water searches in a very aggressive and urgent manner.
Charles, Ed Davis was the Boston police commissioner during the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. He joined the stream earlier to discuss how the environment makes this type of search more challenging. Let's listen into him for a minute.
It is different fundamentally because we were in an urban area. So we were going house to house. We were clearing out buildings. We were going through basements and garages and actually entering into houses and making sure that there was no one in there.
Charles, geography is a big factor here. How does the vast amount of forest and rural areas play into this search?
Yeah, it definitely makes it much harder, much more rigorous in terms of physical exertion of those law enforcement agents and officers that are out there conducting their search right now. And then let's not forget, too, you're periodically going to come across structures of all types. They could be off-the-grid type cabins, sheds, and each and every one of these structures needs to be cleared because it's a potential hiding place for the suspect. So while not ideally an urban environment in terms of known structures and consistent structures, you're still going to encounter obstacles and structures during this type of search that's going to cause the law enforcement teams to have to stop and methodically set up, assume that the suspect may be in, as we saw occur overnight, and have to proceed cautiously and then go in and search and establish if the suspect's there or not.
Charles, as you know, this is a multi-agency effort. As we, approach the weekend, how does their approach change as more time passes? As you mentioned, this is an urgent process right now, but what are we going to see differently play out over the weekend?
Well, the good news is these agencies work closely together on a daily basis, but as time goes on, you're going to need to see the aperture of the search area widen. Now, as I mentioned very early in this investigation, based on the location, the geographic location of Maine, you're going to need to see closer coordination as time goes on with the government of Canada, for example, because now a border crossing to the north is a realistic possibility that could come into play here. So expect to see more states in the New England area become more involved than they already are, keeping in mind that time is on the side of the suspect right now and not authorities.
All right, Charles Marino, thank you so much for your perspective. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.